Hello and welcome to this week's Tools for Joy as we continue on the path of loss. As we move through this amazing journey of life, we're continually shedding what's false, and as the false drops away, our inner self is being revealed bit by bit. But perhaps the biggest barrier that we cling to when it comes to revealing the true self is the story self, the false identity, the I that we believe ourselves to be. And shedding this is not so easy. It's not so easy to just put down something that you've been nurturing and protecting your entire life. Something that you've been clinging to and trying to enhance. And most of all, something that you've been thinking about almost constantly. Because almost every thought that goes through the mind of a human is somehow related to this me. And when I say the story self and when I talk about this me, I'm not talking about you, the real you. I'm talking about that story in your head built upon your past and future, the story of who you think you are when you're lost in thought. Because when you're clear, when you're present, when you're following the breath or your attention is anchored in the body and thought is not capturing your attention, it's impossible to say who you are in that moment. Of course, we can come back and refer to thought, but it's really not possible to say for sure who or what I am when I'm totally present. And the reason for that is simply that all words are abstractions. They're all attempts to explain and quantify things that can't really be explained or quantified. By giving them names and labels and descriptions, we're able to navigate the world and communicate with each other. But it doesn't mean that we know what things really are. You know, right now I'm sitting inside my truck, just recording this, and as I look out I can see grass growing on the ground outside. And I see green and I call it grass. But truly I don't know what that is. If I plucked a blade of grass from there, I couldn't say for sure what it is, why it's there, what it's made from. Again, I could get some scientific definition and use some more words to describe the molecular structure or whatever. But we're still just putting labels on to try and make sense of these mysteries that we don't really understand deep down. And when we use this treatment on ourselves and we believe the stories to be true, then it has this effect of creating what I call the false self or the story self, which is this time-based entity that has a past and a hopeful future. And when we believe ourselves to be that, then we're caught up in the madness. But it's really simple if we just sit and close our eyes and feel the breath and just leave thought alone, let it do whatever it does, but don't get involved in it for a minute. Then it's really easy to see what's true and what's false. So as we breathe and we feel, let's look inside together and see whether we can find this self that we're continuously thinking about. Where is it to be found inside? Can you find its past? Can you spot its future? Can you find its personality traits? Its goodness, its badness, its worthiness, its unworthiness? Can you find anything at all when you look inside? Of course, there are thoughts that say something about the history of this body and whether it was good or bad or right or wrong. But aside from those stories, what can we find? Where is the one that the stories are about? Where's it hiding in there? And as we continue to look, we can observe something equally interesting, which is that the only self that we can find, the only one who's been here since the beginning and has always been watching this life unfold, is this what I call pure awareness. The observer, the perceiver, the watcher of everything coming and going. So we've got two competing phenomena here. We've got a self-concept made out of thoughts that we can't find when we look. And we've got an awareness that's clearly there, because if it wasn't there, you would have no idea of what was going on. There would be nothing perceiving all this that happens. So we have something that the mind refers to constantly that can't be found, and something that the mind tells you is just some idea that I've made up. That's what you've been looking from your entire life. And somehow we're hypnotized into believing that the one we can't find is true and important, and the one that we're looking from is just some made up spiritual idea. Now tell me that's not the definition of insanity. It's completely mad. So we're coming to the end of the path of loss in terms of instruction anyway. And this is perhaps the most important part of this whole journey when it comes to our meditation practice, is that we must learn to sit and practice from this perspective of being pure awareness. Not that you need to sit as that all the time and never get lost in thought, because that's not going to happen. It's part of this journey. But when we sit down to practice, there are two distinct ways in which we can do that. One is to sit as the false self, or believing yourself to be this false self, and saying, I, John Smith, need to become a better person. Therefore, I'm going to meditate every day because then I'll feel calmer and I won't get so angry. And in the future, people will like me more and then I'll be happy. That's how we all sit to begin with. It's fine. But now that we're maturing in this and we see through those stories, we can sit from a really different place, which is this place of I, as awareness, am sitting just for its own sake, just to enjoy sitting and watching. Because I love to watch the breath, I love to watch the body, I love to look and listen. That's awareness as great as joy, is to watch and hear and experience the unfolding of life. And if you are already that awareness, if you are already what you're seeking, then the idea of sitting in order to become something or attain something is completely ludicrous. How can we sit to obtain or gain or become what we already are? What we do, in fact, from here is we sit knowing that we are that awareness. And as we sit from that perspective, we just allow the clouds to clear by themselves. We allow the false to drop away. And of course, we'll move from that place and we'll get lost in thought over and again. But deep down, there becomes this knowing that that's just all temporary distractions. That in reality I already am this. The only practice, the only necessity for practice is to give all the crap time to drift away. So this week, I invite you to try starting your practice from this perspective. And you can say to yourself, awareness is sitting now just for fun. And still, bring your discipline, bring your regularity, bring your commitment, set a timer, do all those things. But during that time, let the striving cease. Let the seeking cease. And just sit and be with whatever is now. And let that be enough. And in this seemingly small distinction, as we pivot from the perspective of seeking to the perspective of just settling into what we already are, we move from the path of loss, which is that journey on which we're shedding all the false. We move into the next phase, which I call a life of awareness. And that's what we're going to be exploring over the next number of sessions. So thank you for joining me again on this Tools for Joy series, The Path of Loss. And thanks to everyone who's emailed feedback and ideas and let me know what's happening in your world. I really love to hear that. And I look forward to speaking with you again next week as we step off the path of loss and into this life of awareness. Thank you.